Pipes Etc. asks, now that a year has passed, has your opinion changed about Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump? No. Welcome to a rare commodity, which is a Gribbly's Folly vid from the Gribbly's Folly Smoky, in which I am standing right now. It's a nice day outside. Temperatures are mild enough to allow me to smoke in the Smoky, and very happy about that. I'm smoking a Satirica's Margate in a well-loved Stanwell that I don't smoke enough, and I'm drinking some coffee. And Shovel and Shane called me the other day, and he was like, you know how you say that you don't talk about politics on YouTube? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, you got a funny way of not talking about politics on YouTube. And he's right. He's right. But look at it like this. I talk about politics the way most people talk about meth, right? Don't do it. And most people talk about politics the way meth heads talk about meth. You just can't get enough of these people, right? And now granted, one of them became the president of the United States. So we kind of have to keep talking about Donald Trump, right? But we're still talking about Hillary Clinton. Like, the one thing that I thought I was going to get out of this whole thing
was that we would never have to talk about Hillary Clinton ever again. Here I am, talking about Hillary Clinton. She comes out with this book, What Happened, as if we weren't all there, as if every single freaking...
I've tried 4 times to make this video. So I thought I would come out here, and I tried a 5th time to make it. And I still ended up arguing with Donald Trump in the Bothy. I brought Donald Trump into the Bothy to argue with him. I said, well, he says this thing about whatever, and this is why that's not, the exact same thing would happen if Hillary Clinton had been elected. And that's not the point. That's not the point. I haven't gotten this deep into this sort of headspace in a year. And so I'm tempted to just not make the video. But I think there's something really important here, and there's something very central to the Gribbly's Folly thing. To answer the question, the original question, no, my opinion about these people has not changed. But my opinion isn't important. At least not about, which one I like better or hate worse, Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton. The opinion that I have that's important is that none of that shit matters. The birds are unhappy with me. I need to feed them. So I've been living in the woods for a year and a half now, meaning that my interests, my emotional energy is spent outside, fishing out here in the Bothy, making videos for you guys, smoking my pipe, doing things I enjoy, and then, spending time with my wife and my son and my friends. And that's a sharp contrast to how I was before, which if you guys followed my channel from back in the day, that my profession was, as a photographer, had me working in media and politics a whole lot. And I'm not trying to claim any authority that I don't have, but I think I'm more well-versed in politics than 90%, 98% of the American public in terms of, I've seen the actual process and seen how it works. And I have friends at all levels of government, and it's not even that it doesn't matter. It's almost, in a very real way, it doesn't even exist. I think Donald Trump personifies, which is a very important word in this sense, personifies the worst thing to happen to America since the Vietnam War, the Great Depression, But he himself is not that thing. He's just who ended up in the office. If Hillary Clinton had won, I would be saying the same thing about her. I couldn't vote for either of those people. And you guys know that. And we've talked about this before, and I don't really want to get back into it, but that's actually nothing new. I've had a hard time voting for any mainstream presidential candidate for a long time. But what I realized in 2016 was that politics aren't real anymore. That the fact that these were our two best and brightest showed either that we had fallen into some state where politics weren't real, or that they had never been real. And I talked about this in my video response to Iron Rails and Pipe Dreams. There's never been any truth in this situation. These institutions, these things that we have held so dear, democracy, republicanism, the rule of law. I used to believe so fervently that America was an exceptional country, that we were qualitatively different from every other country on the face of this earth. And hey, maybe we are. I think the argument could be made. But the fact is, no matter where you live, from Haiti to Manhattan, you're still a human being. And you're still caught in the human condition. And the human condition, invariably, is one of people and rulers. People in the body politic sense, and the government. It was that way when we crawled out of the caves, and the biggest one among us was the alpha male leader caveman. He was the government, and the other cavemen and women, they were the people. And that's the way it is now. I don't like it, but I can't change it. And no one in history has been able to change it. Sometimes it's more severe than others. A Holocaust, a purge, Pinochet. You can point to all the Pol Pot. You can point to all the examples that you want. Sometimes it's worse than others. Americans have enjoyed relatively easy times in this regard. But we're not any different. We're not any different. And the rule of law, civilian government, these are things that, while they might have worked for a while they might have kept us a little bit safer for a while, these concepts, in the end, they're still just concepts. And concepts don't exist. Ooh, now, Gribbs, that's a stout statement. Hold on, what are you saying exactly? Okay, look. Show me the government. Show me the government. What is it? Who is it? The best you're going to be able to do is show me Donald Trump, or whatever president is in power, whatever senator, Okay, those people actually don't have any power over me. I'm not afraid of Donald Trump. Bring him out here to the woods. We'll see who's got the power. We'll see who's got the upper hand. We'll see who the alpha is. Donald Trump and me in the woods. So the best you can really do is point to the man with the badge and the gun that Donald Trump orders around. The LEO, the law enforcement officer, right? Men have been killing each other since before there were laws. Men have been arming themselves for combat with each other, to tear at the flesh of their brothers, to quote a phrase. Since before there were laws. The law is not the reason that this guy has power. The gun is the reason that he has power. Guns exist. Guns exist. The law, the government, doesn't really exist. And I've always known that. That's like poli-sci 101, right? Like that these things are concepts that we create to allow us to like get along with each other, right? Someone's got to have order. Someone's got to be able to enforce that order And so I allow a cop to point a gun at me and move me around and whatever under due process because of the order, because of the civilization. And it's true, it works, it makes it work until it doesn't. But you won't find anyone that will, in like a poli-sci class, that will actually tell you that this thing exists, that these things that we're wrestling with, these ideas, we wrestle not with flesh and blood, but with powers and principalities. Out here in the woods, you wrestle with flesh and blood. And I want to take that back to the world. I try to take that back to the world. When I'm holding a trout in my hand on the edge of a river, that's flesh and blood, right? When I go back to the world and I hand someone a dollar bill, a Federal Reserve note, to give me a whatever fraction of a gallon of gas, right? That's a power and principality. That's something we made up. It's a concept that we use to deal with each other, and that's fine. Except then it comes down to, see, I'm going to lose some of you. I'm going to lose some of you by saying this, but it comes down to quote the same book, the greatest commandment. What's the greatest commandment? Love God, love your neighbor, because they're the same thing. That's it. That's the greatest commandment. And all the other commandments, they hang on those two. When you get caught up in the powers and principalities, you can always find a reason not to love your neighbor. Somebody came to me asking for money. People in the street ask me for money all the time. I can always find a reason to be like, I don't want to support you because I disagree with this thing about you or that thing about you or the way you live or the way you, whatever. One time I really needed help. I needed emergent help. I was literally not going to make it through the experience that I was going through if I didn't get help. And a person with whom I disagree, probably the person with whom I disagree the most, was the one that came and helped me. If we were to sit down and talk about powers and principalities, we'd probably have to end the conversation because we wouldn't want to offend each other. Or we'd talk about it on the internet and, the point would be to offend each other. But when it came down to flesh and blood, she was there for me. So the woods have taught me in this past year to stop wrestling with the powers and principalities. Just ignore them, because they don't really exist anyway. That's it. Keep the ends out for the ties that bind. And brown sugar Pop-Tarts, because they definitely exist.